Um, welcome and thank you everybody for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedules to join my friend Ben Barron and I to discuss basically how to ultimately, what we're all going to do one day is sell our businesses for maximum value. So we're going to talk about that today. If you are trying to multitask, which we know does not exist, if you're trying to multitask with your phones and everything else, please just chill out. Just focus with us, be present with us, and enjoy the conversation that Ben and I are about to have. Shut the door in your office, and let's really have some fun here. Anyways, so this is Ben. Ben, why don't you, I don't know, why don't you just say a little brief thing about you? Who are you, what you're about, and then we'll dive into some good stuff.
Sure. Thanks. So thank you guys for being here. My name is Ben Barron. I've been a physical therapist since 2001. I went to Boston University, got my master's there, joined the private practice world shortly thereafter. Eventually became a partner at ProX Physical Therapy in New England, where we grew our practice to 18 locations before, in actually almost a year ago today, in May of 2017, we chose to partner with professional physical therapy out of New York and sell ProX at that point and continue as part of the larger organization. On top of that, we also have a billing and collections division that we work to help other private practitioners out there to frankly be able to focus more on what is most valuable to them or where they're most valuable, which is probably not in doing their own AR. And so that's how we continue to work on that, as well as doing our work with professional physical therapy. I guess I'll just say this. As kind of a disclaimer, the reason I'm here and the reason Jamey and I got together about things like this is that I truly think that the more information you put out there, the more you help other people in a similar position as you once were, that stuff comes back to you. This is not a plug. I'm not looking for people to come sell their practice to professional or anybody else. Just want to share some of the things that we learned in the process as we went through the process of selling our practice, as well as happy to be open and share with you guys now that we are, I sit on the other side of the table as the head of mergers and acquisitions in New England for this company. So I've both sold my own practice as well as bought, several others. So I can kind of give you both sides of the picture.
Excellent. And yes, Ben and I, the reason Ben is here also is because we are on the belief of all about building relationship capital, providing people with great content, great knowledge, and not expecting anything in return. You're just putting it out there in the universe. And the cool thing about that is things come back to you. So yes, 99% of you, even if you want to use Ben right now, you cannot even use him because where his business is located and where his current market is. So sit back, relax. Ben's not going to try to get you sell your practice. He's just going to provide some great content for you at a very, very good price, which is free. All right. So you can see my mug up there and Ben's beautiful mug up there, how to grow, scale, and sell your business without losing autonomy, which is kind of an interesting thing because people feel like they're going to lose autonomy during this. I spoke to Ben about this title. Let's just kind of start there, Ben. What did you mean by losing autonomy? What are the I guess the things that people fear the most or worry about the most with this idea of selling? Even if you're a brand new practitioner, there's a great saying that says you begin with the end in mind. So you may not be selling for 20 years, but you have to think like that because you can't take your business with you. So what are some of those fears and worries and challenges that people have? And then what we can do is then dive into each of those and just get into some really cool discussions. One quick note, if you have a question, just put it in the chat bar, please, and we'll get to it the best we can. Thank you. Go for it, Ben.
Yeah, so this is funny because I think Jamey and I, this conversation is relatively easy for us. Coming up with a name for this conversation was a little bit more challenging. And so we did go back and forth about the without losing autonomy. And I think it depends on how you define it. I start with the thing I talk to most practice owners about, whether we're interested in working with them or not, is that you need to be able to make a choice for yourself, or the marketplace is going to make one for you. And so that's what I think is ultimate autonomy, right? Is that we get to choose what happens with our business and what the exit strategy is and what our future plans are, while we're still autonomous. I think that it is an option to maintain autonomy even after some sort of transaction, depending on what you choose to do. You know, Jamey's a perfect example, and I don't want to speak for you, but when Jamey sold his practice, he sold it and walked out the door. And so he maintained autonomy by leaving, and that's an option sometimes. It depends on who your buyer is. It depends on how you built your business. But I think that the biggest part of the autonomy is you get to make the decision and you get to decide what's going to happen with your business, because unfortunately, if you don't make a decision, it's going to happen without you being in charge. I'll just tell a small story. I'm working with a group right now. The primary owner is closer to the end of their career than the beginning. And what this person has said to me is that as they roll out the message about potentially selling, that their employees need to understand that a change was going to happen. Either the change was going to happen because that person was no longer able to work, or God forbid something happened to them and then there was no business and there was no transition plan, or this person could go out and try to find the best transition for both her, but also all the employees that they've worked with for 30 years. And that's them exercising their autonomy. That's them making a decision on what happens to the legacy that their business has built.
Yeah, I love that. I love that perspective of this idea that autonomy, the way you and I describe it, it's about freedom. And, you know, my business, the Practice Freedom Method, freedom stands for choice. And what you're saying is you can have a choice and have an active choice right now, or you can have choices being made for you because of some major thing that happens in your life. You know, it could be a health issue. It could be some other kind of issue. But you can have a choice either way. So what we're talking about here, what we're talking about today, and what you were alluding to is have the choice of how you want it to be and how you want it to end. So you're not in this frantic reactive zone going, oh my God, I'm retiring, or there's this other thing I want to do and I got to sell. And all of a sudden you just start selling to pennies of the dollar, because there's a lot of piranhas out there that will, you know, of course they don't want to pay more than they have to. So, so that's kind of how I look at using this word autonomy. It's really about having choice and taking responsibility before the outside world forces your decision. What do you think about that, Ben? Is that?
No, I think you're dead on. And I think that just to kind of transition a little bit, I think what's really great and kind of fulfilling about that is that if you build your practice or manage your practice in order to be able to be sold, odds are it's actually going to provide you with the most autonomy right now. It's going to provide you with the best cash flow right now, the best lifestyle right now. So you could actually, by preparing yourself with the end in mind, you're actually helping yourself out in the present too. That those two things they're rarely opposed to one another.
Absolutely. And for those of you that are here and those of you listening, we'll be talking more about that at the end. So don't go anywhere. Don't be flying out of here. We're going to talk specifically about what Ben said, is actually how to create and develop the business for you to enjoy it now, not just when you're 65, 70 years old. How about we enjoy our life now? So we're going to get to that a little bit on the second half of this webinar. So Ben, let's dive into what are the questions that you hear? What are the concerns that you hear? And let's kind of get into the way you see things. I know you have this this core view of how you determine value. I know you have 3 things. Where do you want to go? I'll go wherever you want to go here.
Yeah, why don't we maybe start with kind of what makes the successful business first and what makes something that somebody is interested in buying, and then we can go backwards perhaps into why you would or wouldn't choose to do something about that.
Excellent. Let's do it. So is it, I got my slides here.
Oh, boy.
Is it this right here? What increases the clinic value?
That'll work.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, it maybe just go all the way to the end, and we'll just show the whole thing at once for the sake of transparency. That this is absolutely stolen. So Mike Mulrennan, who was the CEO and founder of ProX Physical Therapy, is my partner, and has taught me more than he's forgotten more about this world than I'll probably ever know. But one of the things he learned from one of his mentors was that when you're looking at creating an asset value, that it's not just about profitability. In our world, in the world of outpatient rehab, businesses are typically valued based upon whatever their EBITDA is. So EBITDA, earnings before interest, interest, depreciation, amortization, and taxes. I got the order wrong there, but that's all there. Times some sort of multiple that the market determines based upon your size, that this is what someone's willing to pay. That multiple, however, we looked at it a little bit different. Value of a business is its profitability times its sustainability and transferability. So what people are looking for and willing to pay for is not just pure profit. It's that, can that profit continue? Can that profit continue over a period of time? And can it continue after the asset is transferred from the private practice to whoever the second owner is? And those are the things to focus on. So you need to have a profitable business, but it can't be, first of all, it can't be person dependent. Jamey talks about this all the time, that you need processes and checklists so that when you're not in the office, it continues to hum along at the same rate. So that if you were to get sick for a period of time, or God forbid something happened more catastrophic, or you just wanted to take some time off, or you wanted to pursue another interest, it could continue. It can sustain itself without you. And the last is that transferability piece, is the business set up so that once you change owners, that your people aren't all going to walk out the door with you, that referral sources aren't so devoted to you, and consumers aren't so, they're not coming there only because of Jamey. It's because of results and an experience and a cohesiveness of the staff and the brand and the experience, that they're willing to stay. And they're willing to give the next owner a shot. And those are the things that matter the most, right? And those are the things that if you can create and you can build in your practice, is what's going to give you and your asset that much more value.
Yeah, I love this, and I love the transparency that you didn't create these 3 things, because let's face it, everything's been created. We might package them different, but look, it's all been done before. So I love the fact that you're like, hey, I didn't create these, someone else did, and they got them from somewhere else. So I love that. So anyways, let me kind of address some of the things that you talked about there, because being a small business private practice owner and having gone through the process of selling my business, which I did 2 years ago, and I did it a little bit unorthodoxly, because I had only 2 locations, not 10 or 20 locations. But what I had was all 3 of those things. And all 3 of those things allowed my business to sell at what you were talking about, this higher EBITDA multiple. Basically, your profitability times some determination factor of a multiple. One thing that I learned, and I want you to touch on this, when I was going through this process, and I used it as a sponge because I knew this process one day would help other business owners that were doing this. So I tried to learn what this person was looking. The person that bought me was not a physical therapist. This was a business owner. And what he said, he goes, Jamey, I am investing in this. I have money. I can put the money in the stock market and some mutual funds. I can put the money in Under Armour or Google. I can put the money in real estate. But what I want to do is put the money in your business. And I'm not just giving you money. What I'm doing is putting money as an investment that can give me a return of that investment. So do you want to make an investment that is dependent on just you, that if you leave or become disinterested once you get the check, all of a sudden my investment isn't worth as much? Or do you want to invest something that, of course, nothing is guaranteed, but has a history of profitability? It has processes, replicatable things that are being done day in and day out that does not require you to be there. And the biggest challenge that he told me that he sees, and I want you to touch on this, Ben, as I kind of set and frame this out, is the fact that most people who start a business, and I know most people listening to this webinar, we're clinicians. We spent years and years and years as clinicians. We learned how to be clinicians. We then became very good clinicians and had this entrepreneurial spirit to start our own clinic or multiple clinics. But that clinical mindset is also our greatest kryptonite. And that kryptonite doesn't allow us to look at our business as an owner like the people that will be looking at your business do. And it creates lots of confusion. Can you touch more on that, Ben, as a person that now is on the other side of this, looking at these practices, and what are the mistakes that people are making in how they're looking at their business, and of course, what they can do about it?
Yeah, I think that to steal another quote from another one of my colleagues, Mike Severo, he always talks about there's no mission without a margin. So we can have the loftiest goals on earth and we could want to just be true clinicians and help people. But if we can't pay to keep the lights on, if we can't pay our people, if we can't pay for equipment, if we're worried about whether we can make lease payments, that none of it matters. It's not even important at that point. So you have to run a business to help people. And so maybe I'll just tell the story about how I got out of treatment. That I think of myself as I was a pretty good PT. I thought I built very good relationships with patients. I thought my clinical reasoning skills were very good. I wasn't in the top 5% nationally of PTs. I'm not so bold or arrogant as to say that. But I think that once I started working more in the world of the business side, I realized that, one, my mind, it was stimulating to me. I enjoyed it. But I think also, I mean, I came into this profession, as most of us did, to help people. That's why we started in this world and why we went to PT school. And what I started to see was that I could actually, I could help more people by building a larger business that had the same values that I did when I was interacting with one patient. And if I was able to kind of scale myself, if I was able to bring my skill set and apply it to 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 clinics, then that's that many more people whose lives we're impacting. As a therapist, you know, what do most people treat? Probably 2,500, 3,000 visits a year. That's probably 250, 300 individuals, right? You know, just for the sake of round math, that if that's the case, and you can do that, you can help other people do that in a sustainable way, then, you know, your ability to affect the outcomes and the quality of life of people becomes infinite at some point. And the only way to do that, though, is through creating a business that is able to keep the lights on, able to pay people, and able to do all those things while providing great clinical care.
I love it. I love what you're saying. You know, you and I have had conversations just endless, and it's amazing that so many of us don't look at it like that. So hopefully, one of the things you take away from this, because I'm sure there's lots of great nuggets that you could take away, but one of the things you take away is to step away from your business, just physically step out of it and look at it with a perspective of, I am an entrepreneur. I own a business that delivers high-value healthcare to my community. Say that. Don't say, I'm a physical therapist. Because when you say that, you start to look at yourself differently. You start to act differently, and you start to question things about your practice differently. Because I did the same thing. I'm really good at what I do. I did all kinds of fancy stuff. I was one of the first people in the country that did dry needling. I was manipulating necks, all this stuff, how many people could I possibly treat versus how about I become a mentor and share this gift with other people? Well, the minute you do that, you have to have a business structure that allows other people to deliver that. So I looked at myself being selfish by not sharing this and building something that could help more people, and not just them. Think about the family members and the friends and their relationships that come into play when you help someone else. That's what being a true business owner, a real business owner, is all about. Other than that, you just have a job and a piece of paper that says you own a business, so you have some tax deductions.
So Jamey, I'm going to jump in there and interrupt you for a second.
Interrupt me, dude. If not, I'll just keep on going.
For two reasons. One is I think that when you are an owner, let's say you had, I think we had 200 employees when we sold, something like that. You can't consider yourself as man, I got a mortgage, I got kids, I got college, all that sort of stuff. No, as business owners, we actually had 200 sets of kids and 200 mortgages and 200, we had to make decisions with all those people in mind. And it doesn't mean we got every one of them right, but it was a consideration. And I think that's how you have to operate in order to create a business that is going to provide opportunity for everybody that's a part of it, as well as provide the most opportunity for your community members to actually get healthier. So I'm also going to step in and become the host of this webinar for a second, because I got a point here and I want to ask you a question. Talk to me about when you talk about kind of the 3 stages of ownerships, or the 3 types of owners that you see in the PT world. I think it's the clinician, the manager, and the owner. Speak about those for a second, because I want to talk about a conversation I had with a practice owner that I think is an important point.
Yeah, of course. So there are multiple roles that we play as business owners, private practice owners. And the 3 roles we play are that of a clinician, that of a manager, and that of an owner. So each of these roles have very distinct responsibilities. The clinician wants to treat patients. The clinician wants to be left alone to treat patients. So as a clinician, in our clinical mindset, it's all about patient care. And this is the mindset we use to take lots of courses, lots of training to further develop our clinical skills, which is great if that's what you want to be. The manager loves organization. The manager loves consistency and predictability. The manager loves processes and systems. And the manager loves overseeing not the clinicians or the aides or the front desk. They love supporting those people, but within the system itself. So they're managing the system, not people. They're supporting the people to be successful. Very different mindset and operation in a business than a clinician who just literally just wants to just leave me alone, let me do my thing. And then, of course, the owner. The owner wants to support and provide opportunity to not only those people in the business, but also look ahead, look 3 months, 6 months, a year into the world of healthcare and see where things are moving, where things are going, and building a business that can run profitably without them in the business doing all the operations, because they realize they can't sustain that. So you have 3 distinct types of people, and as small private practice owners, we are playing all 3 of these roles constantly. And depending which mindset you use will determine the results of the decision you make. Because if you use decisions made with the clinical mindset as a business owner, it will completely screw up, overwhelm your business, and you're the person working 60, 70 hours a week and saying, I can't get enough referrals, my business is unorganized, people are coming to me with 50 million questions, I'm not making the kind of money I thought. That's where it stems from.
So, and I think that's a great way of looking at it. And what I was talking to this owner the other day about is that I think that in order for people to be successful with their businesses, in order to create an asset that has the most value, I think in the same way that I guarantee every business owner that is still treating patients schedules time to treat patients, people need to schedule time to be a manager, and they need to schedule time to be an owner. Those are 3 roles that you have, and you need to have time to do those things, because if you don't, they're not going to get done. That these things coming into a business, especially maybe in the, back in the 90s, when everybody was making $250 a visit and all those sorts of things, you could kind of back yourself into a very profitable, successful business without even knowing it. Those days are gone, and we're not going to end up where we want to be by accident. It's going to have to be thoughtful and planned out, and organized and diligent. And you have to be just as focused on outcomes when you have your manager hat and your owner hat on as you are when you're worried about the outcomes of your patients when you're treating them.
Yeah, when I talk to people, I talk to so many owners every single day, through all the social media channels and live in person and all that stuff. And it's amazing that how little attention and effort we make to learn how to be a business owner, and how much we focus on being a clinician, even though we have a business, and most of us have a business that have other lives dependent on us. And if you don't have control of your schedule, in our group, in our program, we call it time mastery. Not time management, but for sake of argument, it's the same thing. But mastering your schedule, mastering the activities and things that you do in your schedule. If you don't have that, you will just be inundated with tons of stuff. And you'll be constantly putting out fires and constantly just reacting to every situation that's out there. And that will lead to not a very profitable business, not a business that's sustainable, and definitely not a business that's going to be transferable. You might still be able to sell it, but you're not going to sell it anywhere near at what you think it's worth and what you ultimately deserve because of the time and risk and effort you put in. Great stuff, Ben.
So I think we should definitely leave at least 15 minutes or so for questions at the end. But do you want to shift and start talking about maybe some of the barriers to getting sales done from a seller side as well as a buyer side, or how to go through choosing a partner, those sorts of things? Where should we go from here?
No, I think that's great. I did type into the chat. Hopefully no one responded yet, but if you do have a question, just punch it in the chat and we'll definitely answer it in the last 15 minutes. So I do want to leave a little bit of time for that, and also a little bit of time for some other solutions of how to make your practice more valuable in the meantime before you get to that end stage. So yeah, go for it, man. Give people some good stuff about that.
Yeah, so I think that Jamey asked me about what the biggest barriers are from a seller side, and hopefully some of you out there can identify with this. I think that autonomy piece still is one that scares people, right? It's that most of us go into becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a business owner because we like doing things our way. We think we have value. We think that our way is maybe not the only way, but a good way, and that's how we ended up here. And some of those things do go away, but this is where I would come back. I think the number one piece that I try to tell people is, especially in the marketplace, what we're looking at, there are essentially 3 kinds of buyers out there. There are those that are strategic buyers. So those are people that already have established businesses that are looking to add clinics to them. There are private equity firms trying to find other platforms. I think there are fewer of those now because there are probably 20, 25 private equity backed companies in the PT space right now in the country. And then there's maybe you're going to sell to an employee, another physical therapist, another business person for investment purposes. I think with all of those people, the point there is that there are a lot of people out there that can cut you a check. And when people go through a valuation process, offers will vary. They're not going to be all the same by any means, but they're also not going to grossly vary by millions of dollars, or one person's not going to say you're a 3 multiple and someone else is going to tell you a 10. Like, that's just not going to happen. So the math gets figured out pretty quickly, and then you're left with, okay, who do I want to work with? Who if I'm going to stay on, who do I think that I can get up and be excited to go to work with next to every single day? If I'm not going to stay on, who do I think is going to take care of my employees and my patients the way I did for the last number of years? And I think that spending time now, no matter where, and this is why I advise people, no matter where you are in the process of the life of your business, you need to know who the players are in the marketplace at all times and take some time to get to know them. The bulk of them are really good people. I mean, we're all physical therapists that there aren't too many a-holes in our world, that people came into this profession to help people, so they tend to be decent people. But trying to get to know the nuances of those companies out there. If you think that in 10 years you might have to think about doing things, start meeting people now. Start building relationships with people in your marketplace now, so that it's not going to feel like a rush, or that I have to all of a sudden, go through like a dating game and meet 3 people in 3 weeks and figure out which one of them I like the most. Because that's just a tough way to do things. It also, frankly, will just give you an advantage because you'll know what's going on in your marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I can share just my experience because it's just so fresh in my mind. I put my practice. I worked with someone like yourself. I worked with actually a broker, and because I just didn't want to deal with it myself, and I didn't really know all the players out there. And there's actually a question here that I want you to answer in a second, Ben. It's how do you know who the players are besides possibly just some local clinics in your area? But it's interesting because when I had people approach me, I had about 3-4 people approach me, some of the bigger companies. And, honestly, they weren't very interested in me. I mean, they approached me, but it just wasn't going to be the right fit because I created qualifications. I said the person that's going to purchase me has this qualification, and this qualification. And the biggest one was someone that is going to take care of my people. I don't want someone coming in. And yes, once they own it, they're gonna streamline some of our processes, some HR stuff, obviously. But I don't want someone coming in guns a-blazing to revamp everything that we've done, basically change our culture. Because what happens is our culture works. I want to make sure people are protected. People are going to be treated fairly. So when I had a first conversation with the person that ended up purchasing us, that conversation was all about our team. And he was asking questions all about our team. We didn't talk about numbers. Everyone else I talked to prior was strictly, so give me an idea how much you make and what are you looking for? And that just rubbed me the wrong way. So getting clarity around who would you want to sell to? What are like the 3 most important things to you in this sale, knowing that money is one. You want to be fairly compensated in this transaction. But what else is most important? Because that's going to really look at you and say, maybe what you have to put in place in the meantime, if it's not, if it isn't the right thing. So that was a huge thing for me. Kind of goes along with what you're saying is, what is the most important? But can you answer that question? How do people know who the players are? Obviously you're in the industry. I know the players in my world. When people ask me, Jamey, who are some PT clinics that do X and Y? What about people that are just sitting there in a small town that are like, I don't know, who are the players? Where do they know that? Where do they get that?
Yeah, so I think there's a variety of places when you talk about who's out there and who's buying and who's acquiring. I think one way to figure that out is to kind of have your ear to the ground, and from an industry standpoint online, you can create custom Google News searches for yourself so that you always know about physical therapy acquisition, and anything time it comes up, you just know what's going on. There aren't a ton of national players. This isn't like the fast food business where we all know 10 or 12 fast food businesses. There's in the national world, there's typically US Physical Therapy, Select, and ATI at this point. There are a couple others that are kind of multi-regional, but those are the ones I'd say are the largest. But even the US Physical Therapy ones, you don't even know who they are because they don't operate under the name US Physical Therapy. So the guy next door to you might be a USPT clinic, and you don't even know. But I think that's one way, is just really having your finger on the pulse of what's happening to the marketplace. That's part of your job as when you have that owner hat on during that designated owner time every week, is trying to figure out what's going on. And I think it's geographically you can figure out pretty quickly that figure out, Google physical therapy, your city, your state, or just your state, and the largest players are going to pop up first typically. And you can figure it out. I think the other thing, the biggest way to figure out who's active in your area, right? So within 100 miles, who's been acquiring clinics around me? There's more acquisition work happening in the field in our world right now than in the history of outpatient PT. So someone's being acquired within 100 miles of you right now. It's just a consolidating marketplace. So you should be able to figure it out pretty quickly. I think that the smaller you are, the more you're going to tend to end up in the world of a strategic buyer, right? So there aren't, unless you were to sell to an employee or to somebody who's, right down the street, I would say that what Jamey found in finding somebody outside of the business who just wants to get in, I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think there are a ton of those guys out there. I think it's much more likely that it's going to be someone already in the field. And so, knowing your marketplace, I think we need to come to this as owners from that kind of theory of abundance, that there's plenty of work out there for all of us, and our competitors are not competitors, they're friends and they're colleagues. Having relationships with other people in your area and during that owner time, making it a point to get together once a month or once a quarter with other owners in your area just to pick their brain on what they're hearing and feeling and seeing makes a ton of sense. And it's a way you can get a lot of information from people that are frankly excited and nervous about the same things you're excited and nervous about.
I love that. I love the idea of abundance. We stress that. I talk about it. I write about it. This idea that there are no competitors. That person you think is a competitor might be buying you one day, or you might be buying them. So there's no point to being an asshole to somebody. Just because you're nervous about your business or whatever, we can fix that part. But relationships are everything. So to be the person that is out there, that is talking to people, that is networking with people is so, so key. Also networking on some social media channels. I mean, LinkedIn is a professional 24-hour-a-day network. So you can definitely connect with people there. But if you're local, my situation was a little bit of an anomaly. When I told you that most of the people that came to me initially didn't like me and I didn't like them, because it was Select Medical. Select Medical has, 1,600 facilities around the country. They're not interested in my 2 clinics for the price that I wanted. Why? Because the amount of time and energy and money they're going to put into my 2, they could buy someone that has 20, right, Ben? It's not that much difference, doing a 20 clinic deal than it is a 2. Actually, it might be more work doing a 2 because I won't have all the stuff clear like a 20-person clinic. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think that part of the time as an owner you should spend on your business is really working on creating a really good just organization, and that you have all your financials prepared, you know where they are, they're organized, they're easy to produce. The same thing as it relates to HR sort of employee files and records. Where are all your payer contracts, right? That's always a hang up, that we need to see payer contracts because some of them you can't get in and out of as easy as you might think. And a buyer is going to want to know those things. And the only way to know them is to be able to get copies of them. And if you haven't seen a copy of your agreement that's been amended every year for the last 20 years, but the only copy you have is from 1997, that's not helpful. And so this is why when you look at the world of mergers and acquisitions, that the way to set yourself apart so that someone bites as well as someone gives you as top dollar is if I think that I can get through the process easier, and I use the term tractor pulls. Sometimes practices are tractor pulls. I feel like I'm working way too hard in order to give someone else a large check, where it should be the opposite. Those are the things to consider. I want to go backwards first. I see another question, but we can come back to that. I think that I do want to give some concrete advice that when you're talking to people or when you're evaluating potential buyers, I think that you have to take it as you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And if you look at all the research out there on how to interview people, behavioral-based interviewing is probably the most successful way to find great employees. And what that means is that instead of saying, Jamey, what would you do if a patient did X? If a patient came in and didn't want to pay their copay, if a patient said they wanted to come in 1 time a week. Jamey, tell me what you think that you would do. Instead saying, hey, Jamey, can you give me an example of at your last job or previously when you had a patient who came in and wasn't happy because they came in the wrong day, wrong time. How did you handle that? And the theory is that, the past, the way that you've handled these things in the past is a much better predictor of the future than asking Jamey to project into the future, because he's just going to tell me what he thinks I want to hear. And I think you should do the same thing with these suitors out there, is talk to me about your last 2 or 3 transactions. Who was it with? What were the owners trying to do? Are the owners still on board, that the people that sold to you? How much turnover has there been in their staff? If I ask their staff about their relationship to the new parent company, what would they say? And finally, can I speak to that owner? I want to talk to somebody who's been in my position before, who's gone through this process. I don't think you should do this the first time you talk to somebody, but before you sign a letter of intent, before you're essentially getting engaged, you should want to know what kind of what the dirty secrets are in the past. And I'll tell you this, it's not going to be perfect. That groups that are doing a lot of acquisition, that there's going to be some, there'll be some hairy deals back there in the past at some point. But you want to know the stats. The other thing I ask people to always ask potential buyers is, how many practices do you get under letter of intent, and how many do you close? Right? Because one tactic that you'll see out there is, let's get as many LOIs out there, let's lock people up under exclusivity, and then let's beat them up in due diligence for 2 or 3 months so that they're willing to take less. Those people aren't going to be able to tell you, hey, we had 30 acquisitions done and that was on 31 LOIs. Those are the sorts of things I would be doing, and we did, to make sure that you know as much as you feel like you should, before, frankly, having a business marriage with somebody that you've only superficially know.
I love that. I love that specific tactical stuff. Maybe we'll get you back on when we do a conversation around hiring and all that, because those are some really great points there. And also LOI, letter of intent. You have to sign that. You have an idea that you guys can't discuss it. It's only between you. But like you said, how many of those actually lead to a successful, happy, sale? Because if your conversion rate is very, very low, then you're just locking people up and they're not turning into a successful, happy ending. So I love that. Real quick, we're pushing on time here. May not be able to get to everything, but I want to get to this one because I hear about this one all the time. When you merge with another company or you sell to another company, how do you recommend explaining it to your staff?
So actually, Jamey and I had this conversation with some of his clients a while back, and one of them actually reached out to me, and he told me that one of the most helpful things I said, which I didn't think it was that helpful, but it was nice to hear it was that you need to start preparing today by never telling anyone in your business that you'll never sell. Because it's not factual. You will, at some point, it will happen. Maybe it happens after something catastrophic, and maybe it happens because you choose it. But if you're never going to sell, that means you're going out of business. Those are the only 2 options. So I think that instead, always having open conversations with your staff, if it does come up, and say, hey, you know what? I'm not talking to anybody right now, or I can't in good conscience tell you that we're never going to sell. But I think that what you'll find from me as an owner is that I'll be upfront and honest with you about everything that I can be, and that I'm going to earn your trust, so that when or if a decision does have to be made, that you can trust the fact that the things that I'm going to be paying attention to are, how does this affect our employees and how does this affect our patients? So I think that's number 1. Don't set up the scenario where it's kind of already controversial or for no reason, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one.
Right. You want to be honest. You don't have to be transparent with every little thing, like every little thing that you're thinking. But if someone says, "Hey, do you plan on selling in the future?" Well, yeah, I can't take it with me.
Right.
I mean, it's like, are you going to be at this job for your lifetime? And the answer is, well, no. You don't know what's going to happen, but the last thing I'm going to do is not. What you're really asking is, am I going to have a secure, stable future for the near future? And the answer is, regardless of what I do, you are my number one priority. So it's how you communicate that, and that does, that starts with your own mindset of how you think. So I love that. I can speak very, very quickly in my experience, because like I said, I just went through this a couple years ago. I wanted to feel good that this deal was going to get done, because either one of us could have backed out at any time leading up to signing on the dotted line. So I did not mention it to my staff until about 2 weeks before, once all the financials were agreed upon, once the price was agreed upon, once the transition, like Ben said, I left my practice. I said, I want to check in the bank account. I don't want to stay on. Frankly, I don't think you need me to stay on, but I did sign that I would consult with them. They asked me to consult for the next 6 months. The number of times they actually called me were 0. Although I spent several $1,000s with my attorney setting up this whole consulting agreement that they never use. But whatever. I told them 2 months. I went to my management team. I told them the situation. They were like, oh, okay. And then I brought the big players in. I brought the CEO of the other company in, the CFO, and the director that would actually be handling it. And I basically said, hey, guys, I just want to share with you. I've been looking to sell the last couple of years because, and I gave them a reason. And the reason is because I wanted to be doing this with my life. I wanted to be coaching and helping other practice owners. And I didn't think it was fair to be half in the business. Because frankly, my business was automated. I wasn't doing much with it. I didn't try to grow it. It was just kind of maintaining it. And I didn't think that was fair to them because I'm offering them growth and opportunity. They were like, makes sense. They met the team. Everything's been fine. So, but that was because I had my business arranged like that. If I was in there working there 40 hours a week, treating patients, doing all that, and leaving, that would be much more of a disruption to the day-to-day operations. So if that's the case, yeah, you got to be prepared for a lot of those things, because not only are you leaving, but you're changing the status quo. And we all know people don't like change. Me leaving did not change their day-to-day operation. It didn't do really anything to them. So that kind of leads me to another point, if you want to kind of stay on this, Ben, because we talked about this developing processes. I want to share with you, that I just put this quote in here. This is one of Ben's things that he said the last time we were speaking. Everything tells a story. This really talks about the idea that, everything in your business tells a story. If you're producing some financials or you have some up months, up years, down years, it's not necessary. And I'm pulling this from the last time we spoke just for sake of time. It's not really pulling that it's a bad thing. It just tells a story. So being clear about what the story is, why this happened, why all of a sudden you had a decrease in cash flow in this month. As long as you have a story of, hey, I bought a bunch of equipment. Hey, I paid out a bonus, whatever the case is. As long as you have a justification or reasoning from the story, if it makes sense, it's not necessarily a sticking point. Was that the gist of that, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's one piece of it, right? Is that that you need to know the why, because the questions will be asked. There are going to be some very smart people looking at your financials and your business stuff in order to justify the check that you're going to get. And so when they have questions, the answers are half of it, but the fact that you know the answers is the other half, right? But the other piece about everything tells a story is also talking about the every time you interact with a seller, from the very first introduction to the end, it's a sales process. And that person is trying to convince you that they're the right fit for you, but you also need to go into it thinking that it's an interview and audition for you. So how quickly you'll be able to put documents together. Are you able to provide them in the manner and the format that they're asked for? That your advisors, the team, the outside consultants you use, attorneys, accountants, that sort of stuff, do they project the same professional image that you want to? All those things are going to matter, and they're going to be things that people are paying attention to.
Absolutely. I know we're bucking up on the time here. If guys, you could just hang on for a little bit. I think this next part is going to be very valuable because it's totally in line with what Ben was talking about. What Ben's talking about is the end game. The end game is you are going to sell. That's the end game we all have. The real question is, how do you get there? What is that road to get there so you can enjoy your practice and your life right now and create a great multiple later on and sell it for a high value? I call that practice freedom, right? Practice freedom is having the freedom to keep your practice, to sell it, to expand it, to do whatever you want. And what I did is I wrote some very specific milestones that have to be implemented to have a practice like this. And I know, Ben, you sold your practice and you had all these things in place, but you had multiple locations, like 18 locations. Most small businesses do not have these in place, which is why they don't get maximum dollar. And frankly, they're struggling and they're miserable right now. So I just want to quickly go through what these steps are, and then we can talk about them at a later time. First, you start your practice, right? You're this very smart, ambitious, entrepreneurial PT. You start your practice. You're very, very good at your craft. Next thing you do is you don't have any patients. So you've got to generate referrals. So how do you generate referrals? How do you generate consistent referrals? The next thing is this idea of how do you create your patient engagement. Some people call this how do you maximize your sessions, your visits with people, right? Because that's so important. And then the next one after that is, well, you're getting busy with patients. So now you have referrals coming in, you have visits, all of your time is being taken. What do you have to do? You got to learn how to recruit and hire great people. Because if not, all of your time is done. What do you do after that? Well, you have all these great people in place. This is where the transition happens that most small practices never get to. It's the idea that now you have to really start taking this business seriously, because the minute you hire someone else, this person wants stability, they want security, and they want the opportunity to grow. And they want this in a place that appreciates and acknowledges them. That is only going to happen if you have systems and processes and organization in place. If you don't have that, you are going to have a confusing mess on your hands. Everything is changing, and the value of your practice will be nowhere near what it should be. Once you start getting these processes in place, just like Ben said, now it's time to really start creating financial stability. And this is where you start really putting together, you still have your dashboard and your financials before, but now it's more important to really create solid financial reports, P&L statements, balance sheets, financial dashboards, all of this fun stuff. This is where you want to do it. And then lastly, you have to start putting together your management team. If you don't have a management team, you are then being the manager to them, and that doesn't create the freedom. When you have the management team in place, you have the organization in place, this type of practice is worth far more than any other type of practice. And you get to live right now a lifestyle unlike anybody else out there. I've experienced this. I got 70-something clients that have experienced this. There's other people like Ben was experiencing this, because this what leads you to this practice freedom, this idea of expand, sell, or heck, you just want to maintain, maybe do something else with your life while your practice continues to hum along. So this is what I call the road to practice freedom. This is the magic that gives you what Ben is talking about. Ben, real quick, we're winding up here. 30 seconds. What is your take on this?
Yeah, I think it's I think it makes a ton of sense. The only thing I would argue is I think the process stuff needs to happen when it's just you. I think that process stuff needs to be in place before that recruiting and hiring happens, because that's going to create, once again, everything tells a story. That employee that comes in, employee number one, is going to see that this is not kind of a fly-by-night operation, that we're doing something here. What we're doing is important. And I also, this is my perspective, so take it with a grain of salt. I think you have to be in a very niche location or practice in order to maintain right now. I think that the marketplace is changing so rapidly, with bigger people getting bigger and smaller people joining bigger people or going out of business. that the idea, if you're going to maintain, I think you need to understand that it's going to take a heck of a lot of work. That maintenance is not going to happen just because you've done it 1 year. It's not guaranteed you next year. So I would just add that I think that the idea of staying the same in this world is it's very hard to do.
I love that you brought that up.
Take it for what it's worth. I mean, like I said, I know New England and I know kind of the Northeast very well. I don't know rural markets. I don't know, the Midwest. There are a lot of places I don't know, and it could be very different marketplaces. So that's just my take.
Yeah, no, actually what you said is right on both ends. The process, I had to put it somewhere. The process development.
Yeah.
The process development starts with developing a process to generate referrals, developing a process for patient engagement to maximize visits so you can treat people. So you're absolutely right. Maintain, honestly, I didn't want to put that in there. I just put it in there. It will be removed. You'll never see that word there.
All right.
All right, we're wrapping up here. If you want to contact Ben, here he is. Here's his email. Reach out to him.
Hold on, time out. You missed an R in my email address. 2 R's in my last name.
If you want to reach Ben, use 2 R's in his name. If not, you won't be able to reach him, or you can reach out to me. Other than that, if you want consistent referrals, if you want to learn how to recruit and hire these A players, increase your productivity, create a better work-life balance, a practice that's worth far more, engage staff, management team. Literally, if you want to have this all and you want that roadmap and you need help to do it, I have a solution for you. And the solution, and the timing is right. Timing's not right, not interested. If the timing is right for you, then you can have it. Here's what you do. Set up what I call a discovery call. We have a program. The program works. It's not right for everyone, which is why we have to have a discovery call to see if it's right for you. If it's not right for you, we try to put you somewhere else so you can get the help you need. Only if people are serious and the timing is right. This ain't a sales thing. This is just a program we have that have worked for so many other people. If you're interested, I wanted to make sure I provide a solution. There's people like Doug that has done this. There's people like Michelle that have done this. And there's people like Roland and so many more. If you're interested, go to thepracticefreedommethod.com/profile. Set up a time for us to talk. I ain't going to bite. Let's talk. Let's have it. And we'll go from there. I want to thank my guest, Ben Barron. 2 R's, please. 2 R's. Ben Barron for being on this call with me. Ben, you shared some great stuff. You and I could probably be on here for 3 hours talking about this. Thank you, sir. Appreciate being on here. And, of course, I appreciate you. And I appreciate everybody else that has been on here, taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen, to help become a better owner, a better leader, and ultimately to have a better practice. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you next time.